Hello friends, welcome back to another episode of our Multilingual Nuggets on Multilingual Assessment. Today, we will be talking about the understandings of multilingualism and its implication for how we approach multilingual assessment as test designers and test takers. The key question of this nugget is, to what extent does our view of multilingualism influence our conceptions and practice of multilingual assessment? In this nugget, you will learn these two things. Number 1, the two views of multilingualism, and 2, how these two views may influence how multilingual assessment is designed or approached. Ready? Let's get started. The notion of multilingualism is an overarching term that describes a diversity of linguistic contexts and practices. In other words, multilingualism means different things to different people, and because of this, people practice multilingualism differently. How would you define multilingualism? Your answer could be straightforward or qualified, simple or complex, broad or narrow. Much of your response would most likely be determined by how familiar you are with recent developments in linguistics, which have changed our understanding of multilingualism and its related concepts. It is therefore not surprising to realize how the effects of these understandings have influenced the way in which multilingual assessment is practiced. Some view multilingualism as plural monolingualism. As Heller puts it, in plural monolingualism, languages are distinct and autonomous, whereas in lingua franca multilingualism, languages are so deeply intertwined and fused into each other that the level of fluidity renders it difficult to determine any boundaries that may indicate that there are different languages involved. Hence, plural monolingualism is consistent with a model that renders it possible to choose between languages. Multilingualism, as a lingua franca by contrast, militates against this trend and conjures a very different notion of language. In the plural monolingualism understanding, the notion of multilingualism entails the acquisition or learning and proficient use of one named language in addition to one or more other named languages. Again, in this view, language use is often characterized by an adherence to the ideology of strict separation of language in communication. Figure 1 illustrates this understanding of multilingualism. In the image, each color represents a language associated with a sub-area. If you are looking down at the general area from an aircraft, you'd say that the general area is multilingual, right? You clearly mean that there are many patches of monolingualism, with each sub-area associated with a particular language. Let us consider the second view. For others, or in other contexts, multilingualism, individual multilingualism that is, describes the action of language users drawing on the sets of linguistic resources that are afforded to them in different social and cultural circumstances. These resources may be different national or standard languages, but also dialects, registers, and styles. Here, multilingualism is viewed as a social practice where language is not viewed as an object, but as a process or practice that is dynamic and situated. According to this view, language use reflects a process of speakers exercising a certain kind of agency that allows them to draw upon features of various named languages to achieve their communicative purposes without adherence to the social boundaries of named languages, as Otegi and Garcia put it. This figure is intended to communicate the idea that when the general area is seen from the air, one sees several languages intertwined without adherence to the boundaries of the sub-areas. So, let's illustrate how your understanding of multilingualism as plural, separate monolingualisms may affect the design of multilingual assessment. Before we provide designs of multilingual assessment that reflects different understandings of multilingualism, we need to sound an important caveat. The caveat is that while there may be deep ideological reasons for one or the other view of multilingualism, there may also be many contextual factors that could shape how multilingual assessment is implemented. Let's look at the South African National Grade 12 examinations in content subjects. The exam booklet has two language versions, English and Afrikaans. When registering for the exam, students are expected to indicate one or the other language. Here, we have evidence of multilingual assessment design. However, each question paper is monolingual. The languages are kept separate. What understanding of multilingualism does this design of this multilingual assessment remind you of? Well done! Yes, indeed, this approach to multilingual assessment reflects a plural monolingual view. Interestingly, there is research that shows that although the test designers offered an assessment based on a plural monolingualism view, the test takers, however, adopted an integrated or heteroglossic view. In this study, respondents were asked if they had consulted the other language version of the South African National Grade 12 examinations. This was essentially asking if, whilst completing the assessment, did respondents defy the plural monolingualism view of the test designers? In other words, did students adopt a heteroglossic resource view? We see clearly that 75% of the respondents who had registered to write the exam in Afrikaans consulted the English version of the question paper, with 69% reporting that the translanguaging practice was beneficial. A lower figure of 41% of English home language respondents reported consulting the Afrikaans language version, with 42% of these acknowledging benefits of this translanguaging practice. In this next example, the test designers came closer to an integrated heteroglossic view by displaying different language versions of the task on the same page. All students, depending on what other language or languages they know besides English, can easily read and make meaning across languages. This example is from a third-year Language and Communications module, LCS 311, offered at the University of the Western Cape. In the same course, the lecturers signaled their approval of a heteroglossic view of multilingualism in answers provided by students in class assessments. Interestingly, in their written answers initially, very few students took up this offer. The majority, for any number of conceivable reasons, responded in only one language. Now let's test your knowledge. For each of the questions below, say out your answers in no more than 30 seconds. Alternatively, feel free to pause the video here so you can answer. Well done! You deserve a round of applause. The key message is, The manner in which we approach multilingual assessment may be a function of several things, including how we view the notion of multilingualism. We have also seen that even when we focus on views of multilingualism, test takers may be very different from test designers. As you watch the other nuggets in the series or read about multilingual assessment, whether this is in different parts of the world or in different subject fields, you probably should be asking yourself, what understanding of multilingualism is at play here? That's all we have for this nugget. I hope you've learned a lot and found this information helpful.
Created using Powtoon.